Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups flagrantly violated international law and displayed a chilling disregard for human life by carrying out cruel and brutal crimes including mass summary killings, hostage-taking, and launching indiscriminate rocket attacks into Israel, Amnesty International said today. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant used genocidal language and ordered mass war crimes in the occupied Gaza Strip on Monday in response to Hamas's weekend assault and massacre of Israeli civilians, setting the stage for a large-scale escalation of the violence that has already led to the killing of at least 800 Israelis and more than 500 Palestinians. Gallant said that he had ordered a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, which is home to 2.2 million Palestinians, nearly half of them children. There will be no electricity, no food, no fuel, everything is closed, he said. We are fighting human animals, and we act accordingly. Palestinian armed groups must be held accountable for killings and abductions. Here is the backdrop of this war. Chilling videos show nightmarish scenes as armed men shot dead civilians and dragged away hostages. Israel must end its illegal blockade on Gaza as humanitarian situation becomes catastrophic. Every time I try and close my eyes, I remember the horror of the scene, bodies everywhere. Nova Music Festival survivor, neither security nor justice will be achieved by a civilian bloodbath in Gaza and collective punishment. Agnes Kalamard. Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups have flagrantly violated international law and displayed a chilling disregard for life by carrying out cruel and brutal crimes, including mass summary killings, hostage-taking, and launching indiscriminate rocket attacks into Israel, said Amnesty International. With evidence still emerging of the horrors that unfolded in southern Israel after Saturday's attack, Amnesty will continue its investigations to determine the full range of crimes committed under international law. In Israel, more than 1,200 people, mostly civilians, including children, have been killed, and 2,400 have been injured since attacks began early on the 7th of October. In Gaza, at least 1,200 people, including children, have been killed by Israeli military retaliation. The recently intensified Israeli blockade on Gaza, which has completely disconnected water, electricity, food and fuel supplies is exacerbating an already catastrophic humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Israel's blockade amounts to collective punishment, which is also a war crime. Video footage analyzed by Amnesty's Crisis Evidence Lab shows Palestinian fighters on the initial day of the attacks deliberately shooting at civilians and taking civilians hostage. In one of the most egregious incidents at the Nova Music Festival, at least 260 civilians were killed, while others are still missing. Agnes Kalamard, Amnesty International's Secretary General, said, "Massacring civilians is a war crime and there can be no justification for these reprehensible attacks. We verified chilling videos which show armed men shooting at civilians and dragging people away as hostages. One disturbing video shows armed men parading a woman through central Gaza, like a scene from a nightmare. All civilians who were abducted, including children, must be released immediately. These crimes must be investigated as part of the International Criminal Court's ongoing investigation into crimes committed by all parties in the current conflict. Action needed to end recurrent atrocities. Amnesty is calling on the international community to take all necessary measures to ensure that the human rights of Israelis and Palestinians are fully protected, and to guarantee justice and reparation for victims. Amnesty is calling on Palestinian armed groups and the Israeli authorities to strictly abide by international humanitarian law, foremost by ensuring humanity in the conduct of hostilities, taking necessary precautions to minimize harm to civilians and civilian objects, and refraining from unlawful attacks and from imposing collective punishment on civilians. Amnesty calls on all Palestinian armed groups in Gaza to release all civilian hostages unconditionally and immediately. Amnesty also reiterates its call on Israel to end its 16-year-long illegal blockade on Gaza, starting by immediately suspending its recent increased restrictions. Israel must also end unlawful attacks that kill or injure civilians and destroy civilian homes and infrastructure, And the Israeli government should also refrain from inciting violence and tensions in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, ensuring the safety of all civilians living under its control. Legal framework and wider situation. In 2021, the International Criminal Court opened an investigation into the situation in the State of Palestine with a mandate covering crimes under international law committed by all parties in the current conflict, as well as the crime against humanity of apartheid against Palestinians. Amnesty calls on the ICC prosecutor to expedite progress in the investigation and to include the recent crimes committed by all parties. The latest attacks in Israel must be seen in the wider context of the situation in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. Amnesty also reiterates in the strongest possible terms that nothing can justify war crimes. Amnesty is insisting that the injustices and violations, which are among the root causes of this violence, must be addressed as a matter of urgency. Civilians will continue to pay a heavy price until Israel dismantles its system of apartheid against Palestinians, including its illegal blockade on Gaza. Thank you for watching this important video to the end. We appreciate you very much. Maybe now is a good time to like and subscribe below. It's absolutely free. Help us to expand our reach on the YouTube network.